All right.
In more ways than one. That's not. It's weird. It's not what I expected. Okay.
Okay, should I try it again? Okay. I think we're good to go, right? We on air? Yes? All right. So it is 5 o'clock. I call this meeting to order. For the record, my name is Huang Tran, Chair of FEDRAC. On my right side is committee member Paul McDaniel and council member Susan Honda. On my left is committee member Jack Dovey and council president Linda Kochmar. Do we have any council member online?
No.
Okay, thank you. I just want to recognize them. All right, so public comments. Do we have any?
We have no public comments.
No public comments? We're moving on to committee business. The first item is approval of summary minutes for June 2024.
I make a motion to approve the summary minutes for June 2024.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The matter passed 3-0. Thank you. We are moving on to item B, ordinance setting municipal court judge salary. Steve Groom, welcome.
Thank you. Brian Davis planned to present this item, and he wrote a fairly self-explanatory memo in your packet. I also worked with him on calculating the budgetary impact. This agenda item is a proposal to amend the city's municipal code as it pertains to municipal court judge compensation. Our current municipal code sets our judges' salaries at 95% of district court salaries, as set by the State Salary Commission. At the time, this was due to the workload of our municipal court judges, and it made sense. However, our courts have been increasingly busy, and that's no longer the case. The mayor looked into the matter at the request of our judges and determined that today the work of our municipal court is in fact substantially similar to district court judges, so the mayor recommends that our court judges be compensated at 100% of district court. However, to change this, the municipal code needs to be amended. Brian's memo indicates the budgetary impact to the city would be $24,000 a year, and that includes the base salary, state pension contribution, the portion of payroll taxes paid by the city. Therefore, the resolution, or maybe it's an ordinance, the ordinance in your packet would accomplish that.
Thank you, sir. Any question for, yes, go ahead.
One quick question, the 24,000, so do both judges come up to the same pay?
Yes, yes,
Okay. And the 24 is including both?
yes.
Okay, that was my only question.
Council.
Thank you. How does this compare to other cities that have municipal judges? How does the salary compare?
I think we only look at we're only following the Washington Citizens Commission on Salaries for Elected Officials. I don't know how other cities and their municipal courts conform. And it may depend on their workload too. I don't know.
And does this take effect immediately, or will it be for new judges at the next election?
I am looking at the effective date. 5 days from passage is when it would take effect.
Okay, thank you.
We're ready.
All right, I'll make a motion then.
Go ahead.
I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the first reading on August 13th, 2024.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The matter passed 3-0. We are now moving on to item C, 2025 Washington Association of Sheriff and Police Chief Body Worn Camera Grant Interlocal Agreement. Welcome, Commander.
I'm sorry?
Welcome.
Okay, good evening. Good evening. Sorry, I was a little tardy. I was doing some work down there. Again, my name is Brian Klingel. I'm a commander down at the police department downstairs. Good to see everybody. Thank you very much for your time. We're here to discuss a grant we received from the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, grant for some body-worn cameras. We made a grant application for nearly $16,000. The exact amount is $15,590 to purchase some body cameras, which, as you guys have all seen, we all wear the body camera there. As you guys see, the chief wear his very regularly, so we wear ours. And obviously, the purpose of that is for transparency, record evidence, and our interactions with the community. That is so a program that we have. With this a little over $15,000, we're going to use $11,162.06 to buy 10 additional cameras, and these are for the additional officers that we're adding in there for just basic equipment that we need. And then the additional $4,427.94 is for salary reimbursement and benefits for the training we provide. So we do a formal training of how these cameras work, how we upload data, how we use them for evidence reasons. So we have to provide some training in that's covered. And the policy question for this evening is, should the City of Federal Way, the Federal Way Police Department, into an agreement with the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, otherwise known as WASPIC, to accept the body-worn camera grant funds for fiscal year 2025?
Thank you, sir.
Definitely we should.
Go ahead.
My only question is actually for finance. When we get these grants, does that go in as a line item for the budget, or how, over here, sorry.
It
go
does.
in as a does it go into line item as a budget on here, or how do
I don't know,
grants get-
yeah, yes, and we only budget grants that have been accepted. We don't budget grants that we've applied for.
So like when this comes in, it gets added, but it's
Yes,
not
yes.
actually part of the original? Okay.
It would come in on the next budget amendment. Well, this is for 2025, so it'll be baked into the next year's budget.
Okay, understood, thank you.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
It's great getting the grants because it overcomes the capital cost.
Yes, sir.
Can you refresh my memory? What is the monthly cost we pay for a camera?
I don't have a copy of the contract with me. I know
kinda
I
like
know
a-
it's a charge because of the data and the upload and the storage. As you guys are all aware of, cloud storage is one of the expenses associated with the body camera.
Okay, thank you.
Right. I move to forward the proposed WASPC body-worn camera grant agreement and signature authorization to the August 13th, 2024 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
We have motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The matter passed 3-0. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you very
Commander.
much. Have a great evening.
All right, so moving along, we are going to item D, copier and printer maintenance agreement. Thomas.
Good evening, Chair Tran, committee, and council members. Before you tonight is I have a couple items. The first one is for the copier and printer maintenance agreement with Copiers Northwest. We've been there. Copiers Northwest is the company that currently services, maintains our copier and printer fleet. What this is doing is just creating another contract for another 3-year term with them. It would be for a not to exceed amount of $60,000 per year for the 3-year term, so 180 total. We've used them for the past 13 years. We're procuring this service, and this contract is leveraging the Washington State Department of Enterprise Services / NASPO Managed Print Services Agreement. That ironically coincides with our termination of our current contract, which is at the end of the month of July 31st. That will then renew, and then all of this agreement is tied together with that new agreement as well. So all the pricing and everything is set for 3 years. We have gone through, and again, this one agreement will cover both copiers and printers for the services, including supplies. So any toner, staples, etc., not including paper. And we're only charged on a per-click rate. So meaning if we don't use the printer and it just sits there, or the copier, it just sits there, we pay nothing on it. There's no monthly base or minimums, and that's all based on the terms that are outlined in the state contract. And if we do pay, we start printing a ton of pages, then we pay for a lot of that. So, and that's pretty industry standard as well. So other than that, it's a pretty basic agreement. Copiers Northwest, Copiers Northwest is also the only vendor on the state agreement, the provider that actually services both HP as well as Canon copiers and printers, which is what our fleet consists of. So again, keeping one vendor helps us streamline billing as well as service, and they've been providing excellent service for the past 13 years.
Right, thank you.
Any questions?
Question for Thomas? Go ahead.
So when you say the 60,000, but then you just mentioned that it's on a per print kind of thing, is it 60, and then if we print, it's on top of that, or is it?
No. So there's no flat fee. It's the budgetary amount.
Okay.
So the total.
Up to 60.
Yep, not to exceed 60. The contract that you'll be approving is $180,000 over 3 years. So it comes out to $60,000 a year budget. But yeah, if we don't print anything, if we miraculously go paperless tomorrow, they won't get any money from us.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And the second question, I think you might have already answered, is Copiers Northwest has been a long time, and they seem like they have a monopoly, but it sounds like they're the only ones who can actually do the job. Is that correct?
So yes and no. We have, in my history here, we've had 4 different copier and printer service companies. They are by far the best that we've had, and they are the only ones that manage our fleet. Or they're certified by Canon and HP to copy or to manage our fleet. We could choose different providers to manage the HP ones or the copiers, but they happen to, and the Canons, but they happen to be the only one of the 17 vendors that does both. Copiers Northwest is a lot of people use them around. I kind of agree with that, but so far they've taken care of us really well, and much better than our previous vendors have.
Understood. Thank you.
Councilmember Honda?
Thank you. So over the years, do we as a city print less than we were, let's say, 5 years ago?
So I was thinking about putting together some numbers for this presentation. I opted not to, as I didn't want to get too much into the weeds, but I'd be happy to pull those numbers for you. Historically, before pre-COVID, we were ramping up quite a bit, and I think it's just a matter of printing. People like to have paper, even as much as we try to push for paperless initiatives. People still like having the paper, and for whatever reason, we were trending upwards. When COVID hit, obviously that took a steep nosedive, but now that we're largely back in office and people are conducting business as usual, we are still kind of trending upwards. So that's why previously we had a $150,000 cap over a 3-year term, and so $180,000 covers 2 things. Number one is overall the state and the NASPO per click rates kind of across the board went up 10%. And I think that's because of inflation and everything else. They're using it as an excuse, but that is the negotiated rate, is about 10% increase from what we're paying. Secondly is to cover the additional volumes. So we are trending upwards, not downwards.
When we got, as a council, when we got our our iPads, the goal was no paper.
Correct.
I know we're not anywhere near that, but, yes, I see that. Yes, all right.
I just have a quick question. So is the cost between black and white printing and color are different? And how much
Yes.
are they different?
It depends on the device, but actually I was just looking at that. To give you an example, I can bring this up, and I'm stalling because as I'm frantically clicking through here for the rates. Let's see, updated pricing. So a typical, let's just say one of our newer copiers, which is a Canon IR image runner or image press color. So to print on it, okay, so the black and white rate is 0.009. So that would be a 9/1000th of a cent. It's very, very cheap. For color, it's 0.0449, so 4.5 cents.
Wow.
Sorry, yeah, so sorry, 9/10 of a cent. 9/10 of a cent in black and then 4.5 cents in color.
So
So-
the follow-up question would be, are our computers default to the black and white option first? And then if they needed to print in color, then they can pick that option?
So it was across the board. We did set them up that way. We were getting a lot of pushback from certain departments, so we kind of on department by department basis, and not necessarily, I shouldn't say by department, by device basis, we do change those settings. So we were thinking kind of early 2000 teens. We're all on board to save paper, and we're gonna do all this stuff. So we're gonna default all the copiers to black and white, and then we're also gonna do duplexing, automatic duplexing. And then it's up to the actual individual staff member that's printing to choose otherwise. What we were finding and what we were getting the complaints of, I just automatically print, and now everything is in black and white, and I didn't want that. So now I have to reprint the document, so I have to throw or recycle all of the stuff that I just printed away, and now reprint it again in color. And so so that's why on case-by-case basis, there are still copiers out there that are defaulted to color. A lot of times it's automatic is easier, so that way if you're printing a document and there is one blue colored link in a sea of black and white text, then that one page will charge us the color rate, but then the rest of the document is all black and white.
All right, thank you.
I move to forward the proposed copier and printer maintenance agreement to the August 13th, 2024 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This matter passed 3-0. Thank you. You have the next item, item E, purchase of managed detection and response services.
All right, Chair Tran, committee and council members. Before you, this item is, should the city council approve the purchase of managed detection and response service? The service would be provided by Critical Insight Incorporated. They're a local-based security consultant vendor that we have used in the past. What a managed detection and response service is, and again, I was going to make a presentation and kind of go through a lot of nitty-gritty technical stuff. I'm going to try and keep it high level, and if you have questions, you're welcome to ask. Essentially, what happens is you put something on your network, it ingests all of the information that is flowing in and around the systems, and it summarizes it, sends it to Critical Insight. They have a collector that takes all that information, and they use machine learning, or AI as it's called, to determine the anomalies. Okay, something that is, oh, this is interesting. I see a network packet from a blacklisted IP address, or something that's a known malicious sender, and it will then say, hey, we need to raise this up to an analyst. A real live security analyst will get on, they'll look at it, and they'll say, hey, this is a real problem, or nope, it's an anomaly, so forget about it. If it is a real problem, they'll let us know. They also have the ability to integrate with our, you guys will know this term, CrowdStrike endpoint detection service that we have, to be able to quarantine a device if there is a problem. The beauty in this is it runs 24/7. We do not run 24/7. They have a shift that's 24/7. So they're constantly having an insight into our network 24/7, which is a really good benefit in the cybersecurity landscape. It is something that on Thursday night when I got the call about the outage, I was thinking it was actually, it was the event that I've been waiting for, which is ransomware. It's not if, it's when. It's when it's going to happen. Fortunately, it was not that. It was a very easy but labor-intensive way to mitigate. But these people would be on call for us. They would also, as part of the service, help us out in the event of an issue. This is also something that helps us mitigate risk for cybersecurity, for our cybersecurity liability insurance as well. So these are all things that we can kind of check off on the boxes to help us get a larger coverage in our cybersecurity liability insurance. So ultimately, it's a service. It's going to help us monitor our network in real time, and it provides us the ability to have a security company on call when we need it. Now, obviously, those prices, if they're helping us remediate an issue, that's kind of sold separately. But for this, the monitoring aspect of it is very crucial. This is also being procured off of the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance, NCPA. So we will be able to have this on a cooperative purchasing contract. So the total price is $74,737.85 per year. Total amount over 3 years is $224,213.55. And that is already included as part of the IT budget.
Thank you.
A couple questions. First one is, this looks like it's an appliance plus a software piece. The appliance, is that appliance on, does our traffic go through this appliance to get to the internet, or is this a third party where it routes, it sends the traffic both ways? Is this gonna be blocking us from getting out? Or anything
No,
like
so what we do is we do port mirroring.
Okay.
And so it's gonna send all the traffic from kind of out to a separate port, and then it plugs into the appliance and sends it up.
Does it send the data at the same time, though? Or is like, my question, I was wondering if it's, like I said, literally in between the border gateways and our routers or not?
So it'll sit out of our core on the network, and so it's what we call port mirroring. So it will take any traffic that traverses the core, and it will send basically a copy of it or a mirror of it to this appliance.
Got you on that one. Second one, CrowdStrike and the scenario going on with this. How do these two differ, and then what exactly are we using CrowdStrike for in the city?
Okay. So ultimately, CrowdStrike offers what we buy the endpoint detection, managed endpoint detection response. So what it is effectively a souped up modern version of antivirus. So if you've had McAfee or Norton in the past, CrowdStrike is one of the top tier softwares out there. We use it just for that, so endpoint. So any of the devices, laptops, workstations, or servers, we have it running on all of them. The beauty so if this is one thing, it's putting your eggs in one basket, right? One provider. That this event that happened last week is kind of a lessons learned approach is you don't want to do that. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So you want to sign up for all Microsoft all in. You don't want to do CrowdStrike all in. So what CrowdStrike is doing is they're monitoring, again, all the anomalies on the workstations themselves. So if somebody were to download a malicious file, CrowdStrike will be there. It's also monitored, the service that we procure, by a security operations center. This is that's looking just at the server and the workstation side. This MDR that I'm proposing or tonight before you is on the network side. So it's monitoring all the traffic. So even if something were to come in and attack another network device that doesn't have CrowdStrike running on it, we would have zero visibility into that event. This helps give us visibility there. Okay. If there is an attack that's happening on a server or a workstation, Critical Insight can leverage CrowdStrike and quarantine or shut it down. So they kind of work in concert with each other, if that helps.
So the CrowdStrike's literally at the end user, and this one's actually in between the traffic tracking what's going on?
Correct.
Okay. And then you mentioned that CrowdStrike is actually mounted. Were they the ones who informed us about the issue, or was it one of our employees who were?
It was actually that gentleman right there, Commander Klingel. I got the call at 10:04 on Thursday night, and he's like, "Hey, Valleycom's down, we're down, we can't do anything. Some people I can't log on." It's like, okay, so I did some troubleshooting with Commander Klingel on the phone, and I said, "Yeah, I think we're gonna need to come in." Meanwhile, Leaf, while I was on the phone, had sent me a message with a picture of one of our workstations at the community center with the blue screen that I'm sure you've all seen on the news now. And I was like, this isn't good. All that was flashing ransomware signs in my head. So when I came in and I found out that it was a much larger issue after I talked with Valleycom, I was trying to contact other agencies around, but again, it was late and people weren't picking up the phone. But then sure enough, once we started digging a little bit deeper into that, there was a forum on Reddit, or a thread on Reddit, that said, hey, national issue on CrowdStrike, and then we kind of figured that out from there. So no, CrowdStrike did not reach out to us, but we did call them twice during the event. They picked up the phone right away, and they were very happy to help us. So
I'm sure.
yeah.
Have they made any suggestions to justify, to rectify that? Because if they're supposed to be monitoring and supposed to call us, and you have 3 employees call us before they even contact us, I have a little bit of an issue with if that's part of the contract and not being taken care of.
Well, so
And this is their mistake, nobody else's mistake, and it cost us time, money, and energy.
it did. So we purchased CrowdStrike not directly from them. So we purchased CrowdStrike through CIS, or Centers for Internet Security. It's a convoluted mix of the MS-ISAC, Multi-State Information Security Awareness Center, and Department of Homeland Security, all that. So it's a more on the government side of things. They're the ones with the 24-hour security awareness that are monitoring it for us, not CrowdStrike. So it's kind of a white labeled approach. Ironically, CrowdStrike picked up the phone. It was very difficult for them to get a hold of the CIS, the Security Operations Center, for us. But in any case, no after action. We haven't dug into that at this point. What you see on the news about running the one command to get out of the kind of boot blue screen of death, that's exactly what we're doing. So we're following those directions. It is definitely something that we do need to look at as far as next steps. At this point, I can say in front of council, it wouldn't be my recommendation to switch to another vendor. CrowdStrike is top tier. I don't plan on looking for something else at this point. This stuff happens, unfortunately. Here we are. We have in the budget to go to Microsoft 365. It's a natural evolution of technology, and there are issues with Microsoft Azure that happen almost every year. It will affect us, but it also gives us the capabilities that we need to run a modern organization too. So it is scary how dependent we become on technology.
I'm looking forward to hearing the update on that one. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I don't see any questions.
I'll make a motion then. I move to forward the proposed purchase of managed detection and response MDR service to the August 13th, 2024 consent agenda for council approval.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This matter passes 3-0. Thank you,
All right.
Thomas.
Thank you.
We are now moving on to the next 3 items, and will be presented by Autumn. Welcome.
Good evening, Chair Tran, council members. Thank you. I'm going to pull up my presentation here for really quickly. All right, sorry about the pause. Before you tonight, we are talking about the Performing Arts and Event Center resident artist organizations. There are 3 different policy questions in front of you and 3 different items on the agenda, but I'm going to cover them all as a whole because a majority of those pieces are very similar, so I didn't want to break it up and talk about the same thing 3 times in front of you. The policy question for all of them is, should the City Council approve the proposed memorandum of understanding, and those are in your packet. The resident artists organizations before you this evening for discussion are the Federal Way Symphony Orchestra, Federal Way Youth Symphony Orchestra, and the Federal Way Chorale. There is still negotiations with Jet Cities Chorus and the Harmony Kings. We're just finalizing details, and that was a little bit between their board taking some time to respond and us being able to make sure that we can come to an agreement on those. I plan to bring those forward to you on the September Parks agenda. A little bit about the background of how we reached tonight's MOUs is I started in, not only have I been part of the resident artist organization sort of liaison throughout the last 7 years, but we talked regularly throughout each year on what's happening within their organizations. We did a retreat back in February as we looked forward and saw that their MOUs were getting ready to expire, and that retreat included all board members and directors for each organization. And it created a really transparent space for everyone to talk about the good, the bad, the indifferent, what do they want to see, how can we help them improve, and then for us to be able to talk about on the city side and the OVG side, what things we can do for them as well. Not everything can be, I want this and I can give you that, but we were able to discuss and negotiate over the last few months to find common ground. A lot of what we talked about in that retreat is they all wanted to negotiate their memorandum of understanding individually. They felt like overall from a resident artist program, there was some things that made sense across the board, but they didn't agree that everybody should have the exact same details throughout those. With that said, the very beginning of the MOU discusses the resident artist benefits. You can see some of those are priority booking status, and then what we've negotiated into these new MOUs for a 1-year term is waived rental and fees for a specified number of performances. Each resident artist company is different in what that means, and that is based off of a 7-year average. We tried to look at COVID a little bit, if they did virtual, if they did any other performances pre, post COVID. And then we discussed with them, what makes sense for you next year? Is it 2 performances? Is it 5 performances? On average, for instance, the symphony's doing 5 to 7, depending on the full year that we are operating. They got to a point where 6 made really good sense for them because they don't have the capacity to go to 7 or 8. And then additional rental requests will receive discounted rental rates as they have before. And so if that's outside of, they decide they can do a 7th or an 8th performance and there's a mutually agreeable date, we'll price it out like we did in the past. And then finally, obviously this agreement between the specified RAO and the city cannot be transferred to anybody else. This cannot be gifted out to somebody. They're helping host an event. This is for their specific performances. And then because of funding and because continuing to look out at budget cycles, grant funding, this MOU is for 1 year. That has been discussed in length with each board of directors and those organizations. They understand that while we are able to get to this place from a waive rental and fee capacity this year, we have legwork to make it to that point next year as well, which is kind of going to happen every single year. We're not at a point where we can look out and make a 6-year term and be confident that we can fully waive all of those fees every single year. And then there are some additional details here, and I apologize, the screen is a little bit blocked, but it discusses that each resident artist organization is agreeing to a certain number of performances. Those are specific in the MOUs. This is generic language, so you can kind of see that on your screen, as well as what does that mean for a total number of public performances. Public performances can be free or paid, but we expect that they're not just a rehearsal or a practice, that the doors are open at the PAC for the public to come and view their artistry. They'll comply with the RAO policies, agree to submit season dates by February 1st each year so we can negotiate and talk about how that fits into the PAC season. They'll perform at one city or OVG event each year, and some of these are similar to what was in their previous MOU. We just updated them to make sure moving forward the language is really clear. And then some responsibilities of the city and OVG, because OVG is managing our venue currently, is no charge on merchandise commission should they sell anything within the PAC Theater or the lobby space. Space and season brochures, space on the website. One addition that we added this year in conjunction with OVG is being able to provide some marketing credit to them. So that way they have some benefit within the Performing Arts and Event Center, not only from radio, TV, print ads, social media, but being able to provide that capacity for them. And then again, the policy question before you is, should the City Council approve the proposed memorandum of understanding? And that would be individually for the Federal Way Symphony, the Federal Way Youth Symphony, and the Federal Way Chorale.
Thank you. Any question for Autumn? Al?
Yeah, this is new to me, so I'm trying to figure out this. So when you do the MOUs, there's for the prime example is the symphony orchestra, there's a $52,000 piece of it, and then there's also the 5 different events. is it 52,000, like a check's written to them, and then they also on top of that, are allowed to have the 5 free events there? Or is the 52,000 like in lieu of the 5, I'm not sure if it's 2 pieces or?
So the 52,000 is the budget that we're putting into place for their events that are negotiated within the MOU. So you'll think of it as like a running down, we start at 52,000, and as they have one event, we go down to, they average 8 to 10,000 per event, depending on what they do. So we may, after their first event, be down to $41,000. And we're tracking that throughout the year, but it's a budget within the Performing Arts and Event Center budget. It's not a check written out to the individual organization.
Okay, so if it's 52, then it's like events or anything they do starts eating against that part?
Correct, yeah. Anything that's written into the MOU, which for them is 6 performances, which includes 6 performances on a Saturday or Sunday. Their dates are already scheduled within the season right now, and then a Monday through Thursday rehearsal for each one of those. So it equates to like 12 usage days for the year for them.
Okay, and then since this is, the last MOU was put together and this one split out, do you know what the number was for the last MOU, like what the budget amount was?
There was no budget amount set up with the last MOU. The last MOU strictly gave them discounted rental rates. That was negotiated in early 2017 under the previous director for the Performing Arts and Event Center. Their discounted rates haven't changed since the building opened. The only thing that has changed is labor rates have gone up slightly, but that's a pass-through. Their discounted rental rates have maintained the same, and so we didn't need a budget because almost every single one of their events was a break-even anyway.
Okay, last 2 questions then. So if we, is the 52 automatically put into the PAC fund, or is it a line item left open for the 52? I'm trying to figure out if the money's actually being transferred over and then sits in there, then they go against it?
Correct.
And if it, okay, it is. Then the other part is if we're just providing with services, why do we have to do the 52K or the 52,000 and then do it instead of just saying, okay, these days are locked out for you guys?
So the dates are locked out for them, but one of the biggest things in negotiating MOUs, and Federal Way Youth Symphony is particular in that when their previous MOU was negotiated, they were given waived rental for their Wednesday night practices throughout the entire year. That's a cost to not the PAC, the city. That's not just a $0. Staff members have to be there, sound tech have to be there, janitorial has to happen. So even though we're waiving rental for all of them, we still have to be able to have a budget line item that we cover our costs in there. Otherwise, the PAC continues to lose money for all of those waived fees. Because right now, each of those RAOs is paying for all of that. So while the 52,000 is coming in as revenue, it's a pass-through. This negotiation and this proposal says we will cover that cost in 52,000, so that way they don't have to spend it out of their pocket.
So currently it's being taken out of the budget, but now we're trying to add to the budget, so it takes off of that second, a separate piece of the budget then?
It's not being added to the budget at all right now. It is as revenue, yes, sorry. So the symphony would pay in revenue, that's part of the budget line item, and then there would be expenditures that go out. And at the end of the year, it still equals 0. So right now, we're saying that's not going to come in symphony revenue, it needs to come in other revenue, either from grant funding or through the city budget. And then there's still going to be expenses that go out and create that 0. And the 52,000 isn't a hard set number if we end up at 50 or 51, but I took averages from every single season that they did a full round of shows, looked at how much did each of those shows cost, and then created a budget based off of that so we could be covered for this coming season.
Okay, and then when they do the shows, it sounds like they're free, so there's no revenue being generated for the PAC off of these shows for the most part?
The only revenue that would be generated is the facility fee off of each ticket, which is $1.
Okay, that'd be it?
Yep.
Okay. That was my question, thank you.
Councilmember Honda?
Thank you. So what is the impact to the PAC budget on this?
The overall impact across all 5 resident artist groups will be about $150,000, which we're currently seeking grant funding through For Culture and Doors Open, which we hope to know before the end of our budget cycle at the end of this year to be able to add that into the PAC funding.
So each of these groups sells tickets to their events.
Correct.
Will their ticket prices then be impacted by these?
Don't have a clear answer for you. I'd be happy to ask them if they plan to lower their ticket prices because they are not having to offset rental fees. During all of our discussions, that part hasn't come up. They're concerned about keeping dollars in their pockets to help fund
Correct.
the continued efforts that they have in the community. So most of our conversations were around just specifically this MOU, not around what their ticket price may or may not be.
So when it says for a rehearsal Monday Thursday, that's only one rehearsal, not a rehearsal Monday,
Correct.
Tuesday, Wednesday?
Correct.
Good. I was a little concerned when I read that.
When we discussed it was, so Friday is our prime day. And there have been times in the past where a resident artist wants to rehearse on a Friday and perform on a Saturday. They pay for their Friday rehearsal and they pay for their Saturday performance. In talking about being able to help waive fees or provide an additional benefit to them, in order for the PAC to also generate revenue and have those dates open for shows that they need to book for throughout the year, we wanted to leave Fridays open, meaning rehearsals Monday through Thursday on one of those days, predetermined months in advance. We've already got all of them on the books for 24, 25, and then their Saturday or Sunday performance.
So the Auburn Symphony has been coming up to Federal Way.
Correct.
And I've talked with them about why they're doing that, and they have a perfectly logical, good reason for doing
Yes.
what they're doing. But they're not going to get this deal, right?
They are not a resident artist organization. They are a paying organization.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dovey?
So, I guess my question is, I think this is a great program, it's, in sense, but when people come to us and always ask for more money for the Arts Commission, because we fund so many projects, wouldn't this be actually part of their budget in a way, offline? Because they're asking for more money all the time, and yet we're not giving them lots of money, but this is a way we're actually giving money to the arts to perform, correct?
I would agree. This is a direct impact to arts and culture in Federal Way that the city is able to.
So, I mean, I would like to see, when people come and say, well, the city council's not funding the arts enough, and maybe we're not, I'm not saying we are or aren't, but we should bring up that we are actually funding at another $150,000 that,
Yeah.
so when they stand up there and make everybody think they're, poor as church mice, they're actually may be, but they're actually they're doing some good by getting that money.
Right.
So maybe that's something you could,
I just have to interject, yes, because if you're running a business, we can give you revenue, or we can take away expenses. You don't care, it's a benefit to you.
yeah, I mean, you can either give them 150 and say, give it to the PAC for 150, or you can say, we're already doing it. And the other question I have is kind of off, the other day we voted on a bonus for performing, for doing a good job. Does this kind of help not offset, but make the management team perform better because we're giving the money to these organizations and it's counted as revenue?
It's not
against the laws?
counted-
It's not counted as revenue?
No, it's not counted as revenue towards their incentive. That was another thing in discussing how we can move this program into a new type of program, is that additional revenue in, whether it be from grant funding or directly from the city to make this happen, wouldn't count as part of their incentive. It's a wash, right?
Okay.
It just makes sure the expenses are covered so we can expand the program throughout the years.
Well, we want them to do well so that, the better they do, the better we do as a city. But
Absolutely.
I just, I would like you to allocate the money into the arts so they not allocate it, but make sure everybody understands that there is more money coming.
Council President?
I actually sat down with the chair of the Arts Commission and explained to her about how much money is going into the Performing Arts Center and overall picture, but I think that we just need to keep reminding them when they come back and ask for more.
I do have a question for Director Groom. So if we are gonna approve these 3 items, it's gonna cost the city about 150,000?
These 3 before you are 52,000, and I apologize. I should have-
52, 47, and 16?
Correct.
I think they were 115 for these
Yeah.
3.
For these 3, and then there'll be 2 more before you in September that roughly bring it out to $150,000, which is what I was referencing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in the event that we won't get the grants, how is this money will impact our overall budget?
This is all within the Performing Arts Center. When we get and we don't budget grants that we haven't got. So I think we're taking this one step at a time. I think what we wanted to do was benefit the resident artists, and at the same time, benefit the Performing Arts Center with the community involvement. And so there's some goodwill involved here. And so it's outside the general fund at the moment. Doesn't impact the general fund at the moment, I don't think.
If it doesn't, If I recall correctly, it's supposed to be coming out of the PAC fund, but if the PAC fund didn't have this originally part of the budget, then how is it coming out of the PAC fund if it wasn't part of the original budget? Wouldn't it have to come out of the general fund then?
So it will be a part of the proposed budget that we bring forth to you in the fall, which we are hopeful that we have grant funding so we can show this proposed budget, but also show that we have grant revenues coming in. That isn't a clear question or answer that we can give at this moment in time, but I would say yes, it will be part of its budget. It's just, and we don't have a current fiscal year that it needs to come out of.
So this will actually be for this signing is for next year's
Correct.
programming, which will then be,
Correct.
so this will be brought up again during the budget cycle then?
That is correct. One of the reasons it's
confused.
brought forth to you now is their current MOUs expire August 31st, and we didn't want to enter into the fall and negotiate any dates without these. They also did not want that. One of the big things that they wanted to move forward with is knowing, are we going to have to pay? Are we not going to have to pay? What do those rentals look like? So they can plan for their next season. So these came a little bit before the budget cycle.
Okay, but this is gonna be for next year's budget
Yes.
cycle?
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Dovey?
Yeah, I guess my comment would be, once we do this, it's pretty well budgeted. You're not gonna, I don't think we're gonna come back in October and say, oh, by the way, we're not doing it. So, I just say that because,
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah, and, you look at these things and it's an arts program and it's like a social service. I mean, we give lots of money to lots of organizations to do things, and I don't have a problem funding these type of things because it's good for our community. But I look at it like this: we approve this, it's in the budget,
Yeah.
even if we don't get the grants.
Oh, I understand that one too, but again, I still, like we mentioned before, I think we need to look at the PAC and rethink it is never gonna be as what was originally planned.
Right.
So I think we need to accept that and reevaluate how it should be properly used in the community. But I agree with you on the budget side.
Susan?
Thank you. So the arts programs, their season starts in the fall and goes through the spring.
Their season typically starts in December of this year. And so we have one performance currently on the books for December of this year, but everything else is January, February, March, April.
So no one has any performances in the fall.
They don't typically do any performances in the fall, no. It would be a Christmas time performance or a holiday time performance, and then typically after the first of the year.
Even the symphony, they don't have any fall
We don't have
performances?
any currently on the books for the fall. I can double check that to see if that's adjusted, but at the time that we were talking, there wasn't any on the books for the fall.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we don't have any more questions. We are gonna vote this individually then.
Okay, I'll read the first one then.
Thank you.
I move to forward the proposed memorandum of understanding to the August 13th, 2000 consent agenda for approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This matter passed 3-0. We are moving on to the next item, Fairway Youth Symphony, MOU.
Okay. I move to forward the proposed memorandum of understanding to the August 13th, 2024 consent agenda for approval.
Second?
We have motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Matter passed 3-0, and we are moving on to the last item.
You want me to just go with it, or you want to read it?
Item H.
Item H.
Yes. Okay, I thought I was going to read the title. I move to forward the proposed memorandum of understanding to the August 13th, 2024 consent agenda for approval.
Second?
We have a motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This matter passed 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam. All right, we are moving on to item I, Economic Development Monthly Update. Ms. Tanya Carter, welcome.
Good evening, Chair Tran, Councilmember Dovey, Councilmember McDaniel, and other council members, Council President Kochmar as well. Tanya Carter, your Economic Development Director. I'm here for our monthly Economic Development Update, and also here with me tonight is Dr. Angela Silva. She is the founder and head of CPIN, who is our grant writer for the city. So she will actually be presenting this evening, so she has control of the presentation. This presentation for economic development will just be a monthly summary of our grant finding exercise. And so Dr. Silva will be presenting, and there is no other economic development update for this month. So it will probably be about a 3 or 4 minute update today. So I will hand over the microphone to Dr. Angela Silva. Just one brief comment. This is the grant writing program that council approved for economic development to lead for the entire city. So there are multiple departments that economic development is working with CPEN on to find grants. And there were several requests last month to update the way that we present. So this month we have made those updates, and we hope that it pleases the committee. So Dr. Silva?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Angela Silva. Excited to be here and walk you through some of these slides. Hopefully some will be new and some will be some that you've seen before. So hold on a sec here. All right, so the grant process, for anyone new, this is what we presented previously. Right now we're just doing an update, and if you have questions about that process, happy to answer those. So what's most important is how are we doing with our grant seeking and grant securing strategies. So we have been awarded 1 grant so far, and we've submitted 4 cumulative, 1 new this month. Application declined, so that's a firm no from review, 1. We have 7 cumulative for the department and 2 new this month. We've got a little over 83 million that we've been reviewing for grants reserved for later, and about 28 grants that we've disqualified, 1 new this month. We're looking at alternative funding sources, so these will be presented in the slides ahead. So cumulative, I believe 62 adds up to all the categories above, which are separate as far as what they do. And then 7 total new updates based on the categories on this slide. So let's dig into what this means so we can give you some background context. All right, so applications awarded. So you will be seeing lots more of these, hopefully. The federal government is issuing a lot of funds for energy efficiency, Jobs Act, et cetera. So an allocation grant for the city, the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, has been secured. We have confirmation that's been funded, and we're excited to get that grant underway. That's $147,000 coming to the City of Federal Way. We have also submitted applications for youth athletic facilities and community athletic facilities, so 2.7 million in that bucket. Economic development, SERB application, $64,000 request was submitted, and applications declined. We're not getting funded for some rural tourism, research and data grant, and we're working on municipal court and parks funding, and also foundation for the Washington State Courts. So those are some of the updates on applications awarded, submitted, declined, and in process. All right, grant writer work. Cumulative, so to date, we have 55.5, I believe, hours, Tanya, meetings. So in that category, cumulative meetings, calls, and emails with the city, about 65 hours there. Creating and maintaining deliverables, so making sure things are running smoothly, 20.75 hours, and grant research, a lot in this category, but this leads to a strong pipeline of 93.75 hours. Grant applications and tracking, 1 so far this month. Meetings, calls, and emails, about 9 hours there. So we're not taking a summer break. We're still plugging along. Thanks, Tanya. Creating and maintaining deliverables, 1.5 hours here, and grant research. We're digging into lots of opportunities for 10.25 hours. Okay, we're going to move on to, let's look at what else is coming up in the pipeline of funding sources. So we're seeking some additional resources through the Puget Sound Regional Council. That is a great opportunity. Economic Development Authority, we are engaging in conversations with the Seattle office, which will lead to hopefully more opportunities for grant funding. The Puget Sound Clean Air Agency also has technical assistance and grant resources to improve air quality in King County. So we're excited about that. We're tracking the federal legislative and the state legislative agendas, also opportunity zones and new market tax credits. So there's funding in all those different lanes that we're digging into to see what can be best positioned for the city. Next slide, we're going to go into some grant details. We have a longer pipeline sheet or Excel sheet that you can kind of see. And we're bringing grants forward so we can show what's potentially out there for economic development and other city needs, as well as what could potentially be coming down the pipeline. So on our spreadsheet, we're featuring funders, grants, possible uses, a dollar amount, and when we can apply and when we might be able to know that we've been funded. So this is a great list. We're continuing to develop and update as we go along. And Tanya is amazing to work with. We're so glad she is a treasure for the city. We're also going to be putting some training in place in September and October this year. So some grant basic training and 101 training for folks that's open to the public. And also in October, we'll be doing some fundraising training. So we're excited to bring knowledge forth for the city and those interested to attend. And those are my slides.
Well, thank you for the update, Dr. Silva. We do have questions for you here. Let me start with Council Members Honda.
Oh, thank you. Can you go back to this slide where it said the grants that you have? I think it was your first or second slide. Yes, this one. So it says save for later, $83 million worth of grants. What does that exactly mean? Are those?
So those, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
So those are the ones that we probably are maybe grants that we're looking at and potentially trying to see if they're things that we want to either look into more or apply for at a later date. So I believe that's a strong maybe bucket that we've set aside for potential funding opportunities.
To add a little bit to that, it's saved for later means that the date has already passed for the application. So grants either are on a rolling basis or it's on a, like, you can only apply through March 1st or April 1st. So when we found the grant and researched it, it was a good grant for the city, but we passed the deadline. And so we just have to wait till next year to apply. So there's 12 grants that we have that we can apply for that we would qualify with a project, but we just passed the deadline because we found the grant too late. So we'll apply for it next year, assuming that we still have the grant writers.
And are you looking for grants for the arts, grants for the Performing Arts Center or for the resident art groups?
Yes, we are. I mean, we are working through the wait list, which Director Groom has put together, which are all the priorities, and I believe that is one of them. So, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Tran, I have Councilmember Safford Dawson on the line, and she has a question.
Go ahead, please.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, sorry. Hi, so my question is, these grants that you have already secured, are they, what cycle, what is the deadline for utilization?
You are breaking up.
Yeah, I think the question that I understood is like for the grants that we secured, what is the deadline for utilization or when the funds are coming in?
When are they coming in and when do they need to be spent by?
Yes, so for these projects, we're still early in the award negotiation phase. And so we know that we've got an award for like the energy efficiency grant, but we don't have a formal agreement where we've inked the period of performance and the total dollar amount. So that's very new. I can, as soon as I hear, we can send an update by email if we're not meeting again. But this grant is so new. The technical assistance call was today, but it was a group technical assistance call. So we're still
So once
learning.
So once we get those, will we spend them in-house or are they going to be?
Dr. Silva, if I could jump in.
subcontracted?
Yeah. If I could jump in, Councilmember Sefa Dawson, the 147,000, we, as Dr. Silva just mentioned, just received it, so we will be coming to council to ask to accept to the award. But we didn't have a chance to do that in the interim. So that is for the workforce development program that we presented, I believe in March at FedRAC, for workforce development for energy programs.
Okay, perfect. That was my question. Thank
Yep.
you so much.
Sure.
Councilmember McDaniel?
I have a couple questions. First one is, you had two that were denied by departments. Do we know what the reasonings were? Was it staff requirements or?
I don't know off the top of my head, I don't remember, but I can certainly check back with that. But generally, that is the reason, that it's not a fit, or it's, the requirements are too heavy for the staff to be able to fulfill them. And that is something that we have noticed with some of the grants, that, there is kind of a cost-benefit analysis. If it takes a lot more work to fulfill the grant than it would to actually, seek other funding or to not do the program, then that is something that weighs into the decision.
Okay. Second one is, she had mentioned doing grant writing classes. Is that part of the original 13 or whatever was ARPA? So
Correct.
They're the ones who would be doing the grant
Yes.
writing?
So
I
they're,
talked to somebody today about that, and I was wondering about that.
Yeah, so there's, so we've already scheduled the date. So as was originally proposed, it is 2 workshops. The first workshop is a grant finding workshop, 3-part series. It will be videotaped, and Dr. Silva, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we also are going to have it in Spanish, but it will be videotaped as well, so it'll be basically on demand. So we will have it in a video library that anybody can watch anytime if they're unable to attend. And then the subsequent 3 class workshop will be for the fundraising, and that same thing, it's going to be recorded, and it will be available kind of in perpetuity. And that's really the goal of these programs, is we wanted to make sure that it's something that's accessible, if you're not able to get there on that date, that you still have access to it. And we highly, highly, highly recommend that council and everybody spread the word, that, nonprofits or anybody in the city who's a business that wants to understand how to do this. It's not rocket science, but it's just, it's a process that you can learn how to do. And as you can see from our grant writers, it is a time investment, but it's not complicated. It's just a matter of being diligent and, reading the materials.
Gotcha. Do we have a time for when this will be rolling out, a date or anything yet?
Don't quote me on the exact dates, but it's September and October, and I believe, is it, Dr. Silva, is it Tuesday nights, or I think it's Thursday nights at 6 o'clock or 6:30? But we have marketing materials that are coming out. I think, is that correct, or is it?
Yes, we're firming up the dates and the marketing materials, and there'll be evening sessions. So yes.
Yeah, 90 minutes. I believe it's starting at 6 or 6:30, and I believe it's on Thursday. So we looked at kind of all the schedules. It will be in council chambers so that we can record it professionally. And then council will also be receiving flyers that you can distribute electronically. So we're trying to save paper.
Gotcha. And my last question was, we, like you said, when we had ARPA, we had quite a few projects going on, and we get bits and pieces. When will be the next time you come in to kind of give us an overview of where we're at with all the other projects?
September.
September.
And we now have it posted in the Economic Development Department, so when you're stopping by anytime, you can see it posted there, what the progress is, and we have it set up with the green light, yellow light, red light, so you can see exactly where the progress is. So you can see it anytime, any day.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Dovey?
Yeah, my question is, when I look at the grants that you're applying for, they seem to be state, local, federal, governmental type organizations. I mean, when I look at the list, I'm wondering, are we going to the big 5 in Seattle, Gates 1, Gates 2, Amazon, Bezo 1, and Bezo 2?
If they have grants that are appropriate, yes,
I
then.
mean, we're actually
yes.
looking, I mean,
If-
we're looking at those pools of money and trying to figure
Yes.
out if there's something we could do for housing or middle housing or zoning or any of those kind of things?
Yes. And Dr. Silva, if you'd like to speak more to that, or we can have Ariana speak more to it. But yes, we are looking for philanthropic, any other private foundations, local, state, and federal. So we're looking both at the private and the public sector. So that was one of the requirements for the grant writers, is that we look at everything. And it's, it's very easy to look at a bucket of money where they say it's a bucket of money, for example, for housing, and think that that directly will one-to-one apply to anything that we're doing. But that is really what we're trying to emphasize as much as we can in these presentations. If you look, there's a disproportionate amount of time that is spent for the research.
Yeah, I
So to
understand
research
that.
one grant is right, because you think you think it matches, and then you dig deeper, and then you still think it matches, and you dig deeper, and one part doesn't, so you adjust the program. And so it's a pretty involved process to actually figure out if, a grant for housing is going to fit for the project that we have for housing, which is really what we wanted to kind of highlight with these monthly presentations.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you. I just was at a National League of Cities conference, and we had a presentation on the infrastructure grants. Do you go to NLC or AWC and look for the grants that they're suggesting that cities apply for?
Yes, so actually a large portion of these grants came from when all of us went to the NLC conference earlier in the year. So those are all in here, and there is an infrastructure grant that we're looking at currently as well.
Okay, thank you. Because I did bring back more information if you'd like it. It's in the office.
Absolutely, please, would love it.
Great. Is there anything else? Well, thank you, Tanya, and thank you, Dr. Silva. We'll see you again in September.
Thank you,
Thanks,
appreciate it.
everyone.
Thank you.
Opportunity. Thanks.
All right, now we are moving on to item J, ARPA grant funds reallocation. Mr. Groom.
All right. I can do this. There we go. Almost. Let's get rid of this. There we go. Almost. Thank you. I have been keeping you and the mayor and the city administrator informed on how we are progressing on spending the ARPA funds. We file quarterly compliance reports online. This is not an ordinance, it's not a resolution, it simply asks for council action, same as all the other previous ARPA approvals that you've given. This doesn't change any of the ARPA projects, which staff is actively working on, every single one. It doesn't change the budget. This is to propose a swap, and I would like to just walk through it as clearly as I can. It's not enough for me to be able to explain it to you. I know that you need to be able to explain what you've approved. So the reason I am asking for this is to maximize our ARPA grant. Pursuing every penny of eligible grant funding, I don't want to refund anything back to Treasury if we could have kept it. For the crumbs that we end up saving and sweeping, the deadline for new obligations comes to us December 31st of this year. But the bigger reason is simply to get closure with the U.S. Treasury by charging government services that are eligible, and the simplest is public safety expenses. We currently have to file quarterly compliance reports, and we're still going to have to track all of the approved projects. But if I can take existing government services expenses, charge it to the ARPA grant, completely maximizing what we have charged to it, then we can be done with them. And in turn, that allows our state auditors to do one last audit. And quite frankly, I'm a little skeptical because Treasury rules have changed from time to time for ARPA. Now, one reason that I don't have on screen is so that we can also stop reading the new rules releases that they come out. So this graphic I have is what I am trying to use to explain it as easily as I can. Currently, we have the entire general fund revenue, we have the entire general fund expenses, which includes public safety, salaries, benefits, supplies, and services. Then we've got ARPA revenue, which covers all of the ARPA projects that you have approved. A lot of them are partially dispersed. We have been spending some of them, but what I want to do is just swap them. Charge general fund, public safety expenses to maximize the ARPA grant. And what that allows us to do is to have them fully maximize the grant. So they've already given us the money. We need to have spent it. So now if we charge general fund safety expenses, we will have maximized the grant. We can file our compliance report. What that does then is allow us to continue doing the ARPA expenses exactly as you have approved. We proceed as planned, proceed as authorized, and we won't lose anything if we have savings. I'll come back to you and report what the savings are and what we can do with them, and it will no longer be under the ARPA compliance. The mayor's recommendation is to authorize staff to charge public safety expenses to ARPA. Now, one question you might be thinking is, have other cities done this? And yes, this was not my original idea. I emailed a survey of several city managers. There's 32 cities that receive direct from Treasury ARPA funds. 12 other cities have done this. Bellingham, Everett, Renton, Spokane Valley, Lakewood, Bremerton, Burien, Kirkland, Olympia, Wenatchee, Port Orchard, and Tumwater. And it's not just that other cities have done this. Chase and I know other finance directors and the people who run the finance departments for other cities. We know which ones we respect, we know which ones are experienced. And so we aren't looking to cities that are trying something. We're looking to people that have already done something, and it's people that we want to take their advice. And we also want to be the sort of city that we give advice as well. So that is what I'm proposing. Essentially what it is it's asking you to authorize me to charge public safety expenses to the ARPA grant. And then that is all it is.
Steve, thank you for that. I do have one question. Out of the 12 cities that you named that have been doing this,
Yes.
have any one of them went through the audit and they
A few-
passed the audit?
A few of them have, yeah. In order to use ARPA funds for lost revenue, you have to spend it on something that the government would have done anyway. It's a very broad category. And some of the cities initially chose public safety salaries because they didn't fully trust the Treasury guidelines. And there was one of those buckets that if they disallowed it under lost revenue, well, they could move it over to the other bucket. But nope, this survived just fine. So actually, I could use any department's salaries in the general fund, and it'll pass audit.
Ah,
Good question, thank you.
thank you. Councilmember McDaniel and then Councilmember Hunter.
Yeah, minus some clarity, just to make sure I understand. So we received ARPA, which is the $19 million, and it was to balance out budgets for municipalities because of COVID, right?
Yes.
So when money came in, then we allocated it to a bunch of projects. We had till December 31st, 2024 to allocate the money, correct?
To obligate it, yes.
Okay, and then it had to be spent by December 31st, 2026?
Yes.
So our thing is because we're not gonna have some of these projects done by the end of this year, if they come under budget, that money would have to be returned to the Treasury? Because it wasn't allocated before the cutoff timeframe?
I'll give you a couple examples. Two of the biggest dollar amounts are the community center repairs and streetlights. And if those projects take beyond December 2024, and they come in with a little bit of savings, well, then I come back to you and say, oh, we've got some savings, we want to re-obligate it. Well, the window has closed for obligations. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
Okay, so my question on that one is when I came on council and the community center did come up, I asked this exact same question to that gentleman right there, but I was told that that was not a possibility to kind of do a little bit of a switch in funds. Has something changed?
I hadn't researched it, I hadn't talked to other cities, and I hadn't
Okay.
confirmed that they had gotten through the audits. So perhaps I might have been timid, perhaps we might have been a little bit hesitant.
Oh, I get
Be-
that.
Because we like.
Maybe I could take that.
I'm sorry?
Maybe I could take that. So we weren't sure.
Okay.
So the first thought everyone had when they read the rules was, it looks like supplanting's okay.
Yeah.
For this class of money, which is not something most people that are dealing with federal money would ever conclude. But the language is there and people are starting to do it and people have passed audits. So I think the comfort level has gone.
Okay.
That's right, Treasury
Just want to
issued
make sure I
further,
was thinking the right way.
Yeah.
Treasury issued further guidance which clarified it, and they hadn't originally.
And then my last question is, Why, it just happened to be police, is there a reason why we chose that one, or is that just the biggest one to be able to throw money at?
To be honest, I'm trying not to stray from what other cities have done that our
Okay.
state auditors will be looking at.
Gotcha, that passed the smell test, so we're sticking with it.
Not going to be a guinea pig if I can help it.
Gotcha, thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Oh, thank you. So this is to pay for the public service costs through 2024, not 2025?
Correct, just 2024, in the current year.
So the year is halfway over?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need how much of this and do you need for the rest of the year for,
As of March, the first quarter, we had $10 million unspent. We don't quite have our June second quarter amount yet, so it'll be less than that. And so I've got plenty of money, just within the police department salaries, benefits. I added supplies and expenses if I need it, but I don't think I will.
so you'll, all of the remaining ARPA money, the $10,565 will be sent to public safety and there's
Whatever the
enough.
dollar, yeah, whatever the dollar amount is, I'll just swap it, yeah.
Steve, we're dodging using the one magic word that we've always wanted to say, which is color of money. We're changing the color of money, basically. So we've always said we can't do that. This is the one time that it's okay. So we're changing the color of money from ARPA money to general fund money by doing this, and it frees it up to use it for any purpose.
So to make me more comfortable doing this, I would like to have those 52 projects and have updates on how they're going, where the money's coming from, to make sure we have the money in the general fund. Because I am a little concerned in doing this. I'm actually very concerned about doing this.
By paying salaries out of ARPA, that creates a positive variance in our general fund, and that's exactly where the money comes from.
I understand that,
okay.
but I am concerned, and
Oh,
so
okay.
what I would like to see is the 52 projects and updates on where they're at and how much money's been spent on them, how much money we anticipated spending on them for ARPA, and just follow them through so that we can
Oh.
see that they're completed and that they are being done. That's
Sure.
what I'd like to see.
Be absolutely happy to do that, because we have to do that to make sure that we do all those projects. Yeah, the staff that has gotten their marching orders to do that, they have to stay within the amounts that you
So
authorize.
I would like to see that in the monthly financial report to the council. I think it's really important that we show the public and the council that these projects are being done and where they stand. I think it could be just something you add. It should be fairly simple to
Sure.
do. Thank you.
Last comment I have is if you could send me, like she had mentioned, when you do have the new updated spending, the last one I have is from last year, so I'd like just to see what the ARPA spending is too. That was it.
Happy to do that.
No problem, thank you.
All right, we ready for a motion?
Okay. I move to forward the reallocation of ARPA grant funds as proposed to the August 13th, 2024 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
We have motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Can I make one comment?
You go ahead, please.
Yeah, I would just, in case that gets pulled because it's on consent agenda for more information, I'd want to hopefully make sure we have a presentation like we had now, just ready for the public to know what's going on.
Thank you.
Could I add to that? I think it actually should be under business. I think that we owe it to the public to explain.
I'm not sure
Because-
it needs to be under business unless somebody pulls it that day. I mean, I'm comfortable with what we heard, but I just think we should be prepared.
We've had one citizen already asking us questions, and there might be
We have
more.
100,000 people live here, so.
I'm happy to do that, and I understand August 13th, it's the only council meeting in the month that may be a busy agenda. It's your call.
Well, we already voted, so if any council member want to pull the item, then they can do that at the next meeting.
I will be prepared.
All right, so for the record, this matter passed 3-0. Thank you. We are now moving on to item K, resolution, Federal Way Investment Policy Update.
Thank you. You have in your packet a proposed investment policy which has got 4 edits. And what I propose to accomplish, We want to add some language in the investment policy to acknowledge bond restrictions. I'd like to propose some plain English description of agencies, want to increase maximum maturities, and then there's some website links that have changed. The thing about bond restrictions is tax-exempt bond financing requires that interest on bond proceeds be restricted and spent on the project. So it just seems best to capture it in our policy. We do remind ourselves from time to time, if we call our bond counsel, we don't have to do that if we just put it in our policy. So the proposed language would be this gold font where it says that all of the interest can be apportioned for the benefit of the general fund, except for interest on bond proceeds, which shall remain restricted to be spent for the stated purposes of a bond issue. And the reason this hasn't come up for a while is every time we issue a bond, we spend all the money and then there isn't any proceeds to worry about for a while. So this doesn't happen from time to time. We're going to be issuing a bond pretty soon. And so there will be a few months where the money will be there for EJ to spend, and then while he does it, until he spends it, it'll accrue interest, which then needs to be spent on the project. So that's something that I'd like to have in our policy. That's just a good place for us to have it. The second thing is the definition of agencies. We invest in treasuries and we invest in agencies. And what's an agency? Well, the current language, I copied the language straight out of the state statutes, the RCWs. And while this is technically accurate, it just isn't clear, because what I'm proposing is that we say that we're going to invest in U.S. government agency obligations and government-sponsored enterprises, specifically Federal Home Loan Bank, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Farmer Mac, Federal Farm Credit, and Tennessee Valley Authority. It's what we're already doing. And you know, as a default position, it's always good to just copy what the state statute is, but I decided I could be more clear than the legislature on this one, so I just proposed to do that. Same exact thing, doesn't change a thing we're doing. I think the uninformed reader who might not be financial would understand what we're authorized to invest in if we say it this way. One thing I'd like to change would be to increase our maximum maturities from 60 months to 61 months, which sounds kind of technical or tedious, or what's the point? Why would you bother? We have been in the habit of every time when we have a maturity, we want to buy 5 years out, the next available maturity date. And a couple times we have come up against the situation, for example, if rates go up on July 10th and we can get a good rate for July 31st, 2029, well, that's a few days more than 5 years, and we can't buy it because we're out of compliance. And so if we add 1 month to our maximum maturity, that would fix it. I added this slide, didn't tell Chase I was going to do this. During the month, we have to pick which day we're going to invest, which day we are going to purchase that 5-year maturity. And so we have a little graph every single day, and this is as of this morning. The little black line is what a treasury paid on any given day. And we never know if we should wait till tomorrow. Our rate's going to go up, our rate's going to go down. We happened to, in the current month, we made our investment and we got 4.45% interest. We just happened to pick the highest day of the month, and that was just so random. We just kind of lucked out. But we bought a 4-year, 11-month. We couldn't go 5 years because this was on July 1st, and we couldn't buy a July 15th. But so that's why I'm looking to add 1 more month to our maximum maturities. There's no guarantee we're going to pick the right day any given month, but it would just allow us, if the rates tick up, we decide, yes, today's a good day, let's go ahead and do that. So the interest rates are a bit of a roller coaster. And for those of you that are interested, why the 2-year and the 3-year pay more than the 5-year? That's because the interest rates are still inverted. The yield curve is inverted. The Fed just hasn't acted. And then the last thing is that both the City of Federal Way and the State Treasurer's Public Deposit Protection Commission, they changed their websites this year. You could say, why do we put information into a policy that is likely to change? But if it changes, I'd rather come to you and revise the policy. I would prefer that our policy have accurate and current information, so anybody who looks at it can go exactly to where we're looking at. So that's as interesting as I can make it. It's just those 4 little technical changes. In your packet, you have an investment policy that's got the strikeout and the new text. I'd appreciate your approval, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Steve. Councilmember McDaniel?
Yeah, if you can go back one slide.
Happy to.
A double check, I think it might be federalway, wad.gov.
Oh. Yes, you're right, it's .gov.
Yeah.
Yes,
And then the second one's a little bit different. I'm just curious, I have a lot of people, like you said, who don't understand sometimes the investment side that the city's doing, and they see all that money thinking that it's available to be spent, even though it's already been pre-assigned. What is our, like, threshold of that savings account that we have to keep free? Is there a percentage? I know the city has to have some kind of percentage.
it's more an art than a science, but we have looked at the capital spending, and we've put in our mind that $20 million of liquidity is a minimum, and it's probably too much, but we have set in our head, 20 million.
That was my other question. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else? All right, I'll make a
No more
motion.
questions?
Sounds good. I move to forward the proposed resolution to the August 13th, 2024 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This matter passed 3-0. Thank you. You got the next one. Ordinance 2023-2024 biennial budget amendment.
This is the last one I'm going to do. I'm going to stop talking after this agenda item and let Chase take a turn, but this is for the second quarter budget amendment. Every quarter, the Finance Department staff goes through all the city council meeting minutes, and we send an email out to staff. We want to collect all the things that need to be included in a budget amendment that we need to capture. And that's generally just one of 3 things. It'll be new grants where we need to increase both the revenue and the expense, and prior year carry forward. Now, we did that last quarter, and EJ pointed out that I missed a piece of the 2023 overlay budget. Needed to be carried forward. I hate it when I'm wrong and EJ's right, but I'll just admit it, and we will fix it. And there are some things that arise that they just weren't in the adopted budget. And when new situations arrive, and it's in a restricted fund, and we've got the fund balance sitting there for that purpose, why that's an easy thing to fix. So in many cases, some of these things have already come to city council, you've approved them, and we're getting the budget caught up. I do have some details, and the first one is the current jail cost, and we talked about this last quarter. The current jail cost, we made some progress last quarter. When the budget was adopted, we estimated 2.3 million, but just like last year, this PD tells us that the current year's forecast is 4.5 million, and that gave us a $2.2 million shortfall. So last quarter, we looked at our revenues, and they weren't great, but we were able to fund $559,000. This quarter, we've come up with $1,035,000, which will then leave us $606,000. Now, we're only halfway through the year, so if we can do 3/4 of the shortfall in the first half of the year, that makes me feel like the last little bit will be very doable. I don't think we have to be terribly optimistic, so. So where did we find the million? And it was from revenues, only revenues received. I'm not forecasting the whole year. I'm only looking at the revenues that we have actually received in the bank. Sales tax is actually behind budget, so that one's a negative. Permit fees is ahead of budget, $343,000. The unrestricted utility tax is ahead of budget, $500,000. And our investment revenue actual is ahead of budget by $455,000. The rest of all of the adjustments in your packet are these. The first one, you can see there's EJ's overlay carry forward. That was budgeted last year, just not carried forward. We have several new grants, so we need to recognize the additional revenue and those additional expenses. And those are grants that I think you've approved. They've been accepted. And then the Performing Arts Center in Dumas Bay, those have had increased revenues, and with those come increased expenses. So we need to make sure we can bump up the expenses so they stay in their budget and their fund balances stay positive. Both of those are restricted funds. Most of those is revenue, not quite completely. The Performing Arts Center had $941,000 in unbudgeted revenue and needed $75,000 from fund balance, and Dumas Bay had $210,000 better than budgeted revenue, so that was $70,000 from their fund balance. And lastly, the O&M facility, we needed to increase what we put in the original budget for the property acquisition portion, so make sure that that's in the budget. And that is my explanation for a lot of paper in your packet, but that's trying to make it as simple as I can. Open to questions.
Just one question. When I go down and look at the exhibits, the only budget that has a zero beginning balance is jail service. But it had a previous, in 2023, it had a beginning budget. I'm just curious if that was a one-off or why it would have a zero budget at the beginning of the year.
Is that in Exhibit F?
It's in Exhibit A. I think actually every one of them has it. It's the same across the board.
Oh,
It just popped up as the only zero, and it just happened to be jail.
I don't remember, do you?
We keep the jail fund at zero. It doesn't have a fund balance policy to keep it above that amount, and so we just transfer into the fund what is needed.
So with the previous year, when it did have a beginning budget fund, was that just?
Yeah, beginning fund balance gets adjusted after the year ends. And so when we brought the last budget amendment, it gets adjusted to whatever the fund balance was at the end of the year from the prior year.
Okay. So that particular one just happened to be zeroed out because they spent everything the year before and just never carried over?
Correct.
Okay.
You are digging into the details. Thank you.
It's my job.
Ours too. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, please.
So, in '25, what are we anticipating for jail services? Are we anticipating quite,
We've been talking to PD. I don't think they've settled on a number, but it's probably going to be very much like what we're doing right now. Also, I'm not sure if we know if the jail cost rates are changing or going up. And likely, all costs do go up, so.
did the jail rates not go up this year? I know, didn't SCORE go up this year, or they're going up next year, according to other cities?
I'd have to check back with you. There's
Yeah.
5 different jails that we use,
Right.
and they're all contracted, but I, off the top of my head, I'm afraid I don't know.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the public hearing and first reading on August 13th, 2024.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This matter passed 3-0. Thank you, Steve. We are at item M, AP voucher 6/18/2024 through 7/15/2024, and payroll voucher from 6/01/24 to 6/30/2024. Chase, welcome.
Good evening, Council Chair Tran, Council Committee members, Council President. Before you are the AP vouchers in the amount of $3,448,754.15 and payroll vouchers in the amount of $5,013,922.22. June AP vouchers are just slightly low, but consistent with prior months. And then payroll vouchers are a little higher due to the quarterly payroll taxes that we pay out in that month. So the check's cut, and it is just a bit higher. We did send answers to questions to the committee before the meeting. So thank you for those questions, and we'd be
Thank you
happy
very
to
much.
answer anything else that you may have.
I do appreciate you taking time to answer my questions.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I just want to say thank you, Council Member Honda, for always asking those important questions. Appreciate it.
Keeps me up at night.
All right, it look like we don't have any questions.
Right. I move to forward the vouchers to the August 13th, 2024 consent agenda for approval.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This matter passed 3-0. Thank you. Our next item is item N, monthly financial report for June 2024.
Good evening again, but it's still sunny outside, so maybe it's not evening, I don't know. But before you use the June monthly financial report, so we're 6 months through the year, so this is the midway point for the financials for the city. And we're going to answer the questions that we answer every month. Our expenditures are within budget, our revenues favorable or unfavorable compared to year-to-date budget, and our investments within the policy that is set by council. So for the first 6 months, revenues are favorable to year-to-date budget of $28 million by $848,000. There always is a 1 to 2 month lag there, depending on the revenue source, whether it's sales tax or property tax. And expenditures are also favorable year-to-date budget by $31.99 million by $239,000. This is a high-level summary. We do expect departments to manage within their department line items, but we are favorable on both ends there. We will highlight some of the favorable revenue sources in the following slides, as we always do, and we've added a few new items this month. So sales tax revenue is unfavorable to the budget by $263,000. That's Steve just mentioned, and under the prior year by $377,000. This is on a scale of a $21 million budget. It's our largest revenue source and a primary indicator of how the economy is doing. We have added here this month that 6 out of the 7 past months are down compared to the prior year. And as you can see in the graphs on the left, the bottom left, it's a May year to date, and then just May 2024 comparative years of 7 different years. You can see a little bit of a dip down in 2024 compared to the prior year. And then the chart that just showed up with the historical sales taxes by month in those various years, and we've been down 6 of the 7 past months. So we are watching that for projecting in the future.
Can you tell me real quick, there's the gold bar, but the bottom key doesn't have a gold bar.
The gold ones are the ones that are down. There's a bright green one for February, because February was a good month. It was higher than the previous year.
Okay.
Okay.
We try to go from white to gray to black to dark green and bright green. And then we just turned the negatives gold, we could have made them red also.
Oh, okay. I was looking for the key, and I didn't see any gold, and I only saw the one dark, bright green, so I
Yeah.
was lost. Okay, I know what you're doing now.
Okay.
I understand now. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bright red would be very nice next time.
Yeah, we have talked to other cities. Other cities are seeing very similar projections on our sales tax. Permit fee revenues are favorable to the budget by $343,000, as Steve just indicated in the budget amendment, but under prior year by $981,000. Again, in the bottom left-hand graph, you can see that there's a bit of a dip in 2024, and we're also down 8 out of the 9 months compared to the prior year. Several school permits accounted for the increase in 2023, so we saw a number of school permits come in that year. And we continue to watch this revenue source. This is on a scale of 3 million, so it's not one of our top 3 revenue sources in the general fund, but still is a significant revenue source for the city.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because go back that slide, please. So it says that we're 24% favorable to budget, but 36 under the prior year. Are you just saying we're favorable in the month that this is in?
No.
I mean, I don't see how you could be 36% upside down and be favorable to budget.
So year-to-date through June is the 24%. So through June, we're above 343,000 because we budgeted conservatively. And then compared to prior year, we had a good year last year. And
So we're
some of
really
the school
upside
permits-
down 640,000 from last year's money coming in.
If you're comparing just to prior year.
Chase, can you back up one more click?
But
Yeah,
didn't,
that one, that one. The blue line is prior year, and the gray wedge is the budget. And so we're ahead of budget, but we're underneath prior year. And now,
okay, so the gray line is what you budgeted, the red line's what's come in, and the blue line was an exceptional year, so we're down from there.
exactly right.
So we're not gonna have extra money at the end of the year like we've had for these budget adjustments first couple quarters,
No such,
probably.
no such thing as extra money, sir.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a question? This was on the first or second slide. It talks about our budget is favorable due to timing of ARPA spending and police officer position vacancies. How many police officer positions are vacant? And do we have other positions vacant in the city that is contributing to a favorable report?
I don't have that information with me tonight, but we can follow up with HR and get that information back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Property tax revenue that we bring to you every month is unfavorable to budget slightly and over prior year. This is a consistent revenue source that we receive April, May, and October, November of each year. We expect it to come in at the revenue projection that we have, which is 12 million. This is one of our top 3 revenue sources that fund the general fund, and we expect this to come in adequately like it has in prior years. Just as a reminder, this is a revenue source that only increases by 1% per year over the prior year revenue plus new construction. And so it doesn't increase greatly year over year, but is a consistent and needed revenue source for the city. And we expect it to come in as budgeted. Real estate excise tax that we've been bringing to you every month is unfavorable to budget by 1.1 million and 422,000 under the prior year. As we've discussed in prior meetings, this has continued just to trend downward. We hope it makes a comeback, but due to mortgage rates and slower pace of sales, the revenue source is down. We have been having discussions with Public Works on a regular basis to keep that communication line going to make sure that we're discussing projects at this fund. This can only be used for capital projects or debt on those capital projects or facility maintenance. And so it is a restricted revenue source. It can't be used to pay for the general fund. It's capital specific. And so if it doesn't come in, capital potentially will need to slow down depending on other revenue sources that are available within those funds.
Mr. Doe?
Question, how much new construction in value would we need to make up this number? I mean, I don't know the ratio is, I mean, do we need $1 billion or do we need 300 million? Or what's the number that if we could, encourage builders to come and build in Federal Way that we're trying to get to?
It's a lot, because I think it's like half.
It's a lot.
Half of 1% or
Yeah.
something from King County. It's a large amount.
Yeah, I'm trying to think some of the big projects we've had. When you see a big project, it's still a small number.
It's usually when like apartment buildings have sold,
Yeah, I
where
mean,
we've
is it-
received like a.
If we had
significant amount.
11,000 homes get built in the next 6 months, would we be whole? I mean, I don't know. I'm just curious what that number really is. I mean, it's a small number, but, this is not getting any prettier.
And we've been saying that we're waiting for the mortgage rates to fall, but I'm also wondering if there's just plain pent-up demand that
Yeah,
is.
but there's only 1.5 months of
Yeah.
housing stock available today. So even if the rents go down to 2%, I mean, there's probably not enough houses for people to buy to even move this marker.
But maybe if the rates go down, then people will start selling, like the apartment buildings, and so then this will start going up.
Yes,
Yeah, and I think I saw something in the news that said that we're going to start going down the mortgage rates.
buyers would be more able to buy.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the excise tax? At what percentage? When-
It's,
It's a total of one?
Yeah,
Two
it's-
0.5%?
right, total of 1,
1%.
yeah.
So you need 100 million
Yeah.
get $1 million.
Yeah, we need $100 million.
So you difference. Yeah, it's like $300 million.
But
$300 million to build and to come back to.
there's a small percentage taken off that 1% too, so I don't want to speak just specifically to that, but
go by it.
it's close.
Thank you.
This is a new slide this month, so this is utility tax revenue and the report. If you look on page that has the utility tax, we added a new slide that splits out our different utility tax revenues. We've talked about this a bit at updates that we've given on a monthly basis, but we wanted to split it out to make it more transparent and readable. So the top graph there is our unrestricted utility tax. That's our 6%. The second graph is our Prop 1 utility tax, which is our 1.75%. That was voted on by citizens, and it was primarily voted to pay for public safety. And then the last graph there is 10% solid waste utility tax, which is used for residential street overlay. So that's also a restricted funding source. All three are doing well, but we're going to highlight the utility tax that's unrestricted. It's $575,000 or 11% favorable to budget, and $67,000 under the prior year. We do have that budgeted in this budget amendment. And this is the utility tax. This is the 6% that's available to fund ongoing operations within the general fund. So we typically just transfer that funding into the general fund. It pays for general services like the police department. And so this is our 6% utility tax out of the three, but we've split it now to make it a little more clear on how it's split out and how each revenue source is doing, not just having the three combined. As always, I'll give you an update on the monthly investment activity. For June, our investment revenue, as Steve pointed out in the budget amendment, is $455,000 or 32% favorable to the budget, and $161,000 or 9% over the prior year. This is similar to what we've seen in the prior year. It's still doing quite well. Rates are up, and so we are continually seeing that benefit. We had two maturities this month. The rates were earning what's circled, the 0.6%, the 5.4%, and then we purchased one Fannie Mae with maturity of June 2025 at a rate of 5%. The next slide is going to show what we show you each month. This is our total cash investment position for the city. The yellow is what's in checking at month end, representing what are outstanding in AP and payroll that need to be covered. The green is what's in our state treasurer's government investment pool, and the blue is the city's investment program at $65 million. So the total cash is maintaining a healthy balance at $109 million. And then this graph that we show you each month is our total investment holdings for the city, and we just show the split out of where those investments are sitting. We have $65 million invested between U.S. Treasuries and agencies, as shown on this chart. So the U.S. Treasuries is $42 million, the rest in agencies. And then we're keeping about 33% in LGIP and about $32 million. As Steve mentioned in the presentation, we like to keep a $20 million backstop for liquidity. This is covering things like your AP, your payroll, capital projects that are ongoing. We want to make sure we have enough liquidity to cover our expenses for the city.
Chase, Councilmember McDaniel has a question.
My quick question is on the new, if you go back to what we just purchased this year for investments, why did we only do a single year? We've been doing 5 years. We just approved to increase it to, 61 months. Why did we only do a single year for the purchase this time?
We fill all 60 months to fill our 5-year ladder. And then we've got another 5 or 6 million that we got to do something with. And so right now, the highest rate on the yield curve is at 3 months. We're kind of doing a 12-month ladder with that 5 or 6 million on top of our 60. So
we've maxed out the 5s that we feel comfortable with?
Yep.
Huh. Can you explain to me why we would not want the longer term ones? Is it just to keep the money a little easier to get access to when the rates are like I don't believe we're going to see these rates again for any time soon, so.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, we could put a $2 million investment on a few of them.
Okay. I was just curious, it just threw me off
Yeah.
about the 1 year. All
Yeah.
right, thank you.
And I think you were going to the last slide, which I'll just speak to from here if I may. We have a little slide that just gives you an update on what the department has been doing. We completed the 2023 audit, and you have in front of you, Councilman McDaniel, I know how pleased you are to get a paper copy, but those are your own personal copies of our 2023 audit. We're quite pleased to be done with the audit. The net position went up, our revenues grew. And this was also used when we did our credit rating. We also completed our credit rating presentation a couple weeks ago, and we will find out on July 25th, which is this Thursday at 10 o'clock in the morning. They're going to tell us what our new bond rating is. If it's the same, if we are stable, it's going to be AA2. We are on track with our debt issue. We expect to complete that and get funding on August 20th. We still have a whole bunch of checklist items to work with our bond counsel and folks to get that done. That's on track. The fourth item, we've been working with Thomas, the finance department and the IT department have been working citywide doing discovery meetings. We have to replace our financial system. We hired a consultant who was working with many cities across the state who are in the same exact boat. So we're tapping their knowledge of the process. We expect to put it out for RFP soon, and we'll keep you posted on that. And then, of course, the public meetings in September are approaching for us on the budget. And in the background, we're just doing what we always do with our monthly close, our monthly reporting, our accounts payable and payroll. We want to keep you up to date on all of that. Enjoy your copies of the audit.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So I appreciate this. I like reading these things. When will we get the budget?
I believe September 1st is when the mayor's copy, that's when the deadline is. I think it's September 1st.
So, and then the first meeting in September will be, well, I hope it's not the first.
Yes, we'll file it with the city clerk by September 1st, and then the first Tuesday you would have it for city council.
So we get it the first Tuesday at the meeting, when the public gets it.
Yeah, Stephanie's got the schedule of all the budget study sessions.
Well, so I know this has happened in the past where we got the budget the same day that it was presented to the public. And it would be really nice if we could get it maybe the weekend before, like Thursday, so we would at least have some days to look at it before the public sees it and we're seeing it at the same time.
Right. I'll look at the calendar and see if we can make that happen, yeah.
I would appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, I think, are you done with your
That
presentation?
concludes the report. Thank you.
Great. Okay, I just don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, make a motion here. I move to forward the June 2024 monthly financial report to the August 13th, 2024 consent agenda for approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This matter passed 3-0. And that concludes all of the items for today's meeting. As a reminder, we won't have the FedRAC meeting in the month of August so that staff can spend time with their family. So we'll see you again in September 24th at 5 p.m. in this room.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
As you did last year, could you send the vouchers, though, out in August, so I don't have 2 months to go through at one time?
That makes a lot of sense, yeah.
You did that last year, so
Yeah.
I appreciated that.
Thank you for the reminder. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, staff, for being here.
Thank you. Good night.
Recording stopped.